everyone, this is From We Can to We Can, and this is our at-home series. Today we have a very special guest with us, and she's going to introduce herself as well as introduce who your brother is.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Cheryl Albright. I currently live in Florida and I'm about an hour south of Tampa in Bradenton. I do have an older brother on the autism spectrum, and he has an intellectual disability as well, nonverbal as an adult, and I am now his legal guardian.
Awesome. So why don't you go ahead and tell us the story of how you became his legal guardian?
In the middle of a crisis. So about a year and a half ago, probably like 2 years ago now, I remember having the conversation with my father saying when we needed to have these conversations about what's going to happen. He would shut down, wouldn't want to have the conversation. And about 3 months later, he ended up in the hospital with multiple organ failure. And so we were in crisis mode, trying to push that through the courts on top of taking care of his needs. Right. And so, you know, he didn't tell me where his power of attorney paperwork was, or healthcare proxy, or where my brother's guardianship paperwork was, so it was like a wild goose chase of trying to find all of these legal documents, get my brother's stuff through the court system, deal with my father's health stuff. I mean, they told me to plan his funeral 3 times, and then he ended up outliving hospice. So now I actually have both of them. I was living in Florida at the time. I own my own business, thankfully. So I could stop what I was doing and go back and forth. And, you know, had a bunch of contractors that could help me out. But it wasn't easy. And so dropping everything and just kind of taking off when you have, you know, I don't have children, but I have a husband and a life and other things going on. And,
right.
You know, but I can only imagine if I had kids what that mess could have looked like. And so, you know, now it's kind of like, all right, educating other parents, I educate all the clients. I became my brother's legal guardian last March, and then about a year later, I was able to move him closer to me. So,
wow. So how did your life change now that you had your brother under your care?
My phone is constantly going off. Is the best way I can put it. During kind of the height of the pandemic is when I ended up moving him, and it wasn't intentional, but we had already told the group home in the state of New York that bed was going to be available, so there was nothing we could do. But my husband and I and friends and caregivers, we all kind of pitched in until we could find placement, and it took about 5.5 weeks. So that was a bit of a stretch, but you know, everything ended up working out. So that's, you know, what can you do?
So growing up with your brother, what would you say, what was the experience like having a sibling with special needs? Would you say it was different? So he's your older brother, so did you have to take care of him more, like living with him? How was that experience?
I know what I tell people is that, you know, my first words weren't, "You're normal." Like if you go back into my baby book, it was, "Where's Jimmy? What's Jimmy doing now?" And so it was parroting what, you know, parents were saying around. And you know, that's pretty, it wasn't mom, it wasn't dad, it wasn't any of your typical things. It was like, no, where's Jimmy? Like, because that's all you ever heard. And so I kind of grew up into his world. I don't ever remember them sitting down and saying, "Your brother has autism." It was just kind of, I don't even know when the words came out of my mouth, probably 3rd, 4th grade when they finally said, "Oh yeah, by the way, there's a label to this. It's not just normal." He was pretty intense as a child. So this is what I like to preface this as. So he was diagnosed in like 1980.
Okay.
So this is pre-Rain Man. This is pre-acceptable. And actually in the DSM-3, it was considered under the MR umbrella, which is words they don't even use anymore. Wow. So there wasn't the services that you see today. Right. You might have had a little bit of speech. There wasn't IEPs. You went to a separate school. And so things were a little different. If you didn't know me from the outside, you would have thought I was an only child because we did go to 2 separate schools. And he was, as the teenage years came, he came very aggressive, not toward any human, but toward objects. So breaking windows and walls and things like that. So that part was a little stressful. He still doesn't sleep. He's up at like 3 a.m. is kind of his witching hour, is what I learned under my roof. He's still kind of just wakes up at that time.
So you would say that you were closely connected with your brother?
I would say so. I mean, he and I are still pretty close. I talk to him like he's a normal human being and can't figure out why other people don't do that. Like he's not deaf. So why wouldn't you just use your words?
Know that people really treat people with special needs as if they don't have any type of like awareness of the surrounding or anything like that. So I'm glad you made that point.
If anything, he's hyper aware. So use your words and explain what's coming, what's going on. He thought like I was scared to death to put him on an airplane. He did fine. He thought it was the coolest thing ever. He kept looking back at me and my husband and looking out the window and thought, you know, he stayed in his seat. And I thought, you know, I really thought worst case scenario, they're grounding the plane because he's jumping all over the plane. Like I really just didn't think that it would work out the way it did, but you know, he did great.
That's awesome. What's the age difference between you guys? How many years?
4 years.
4 years. Okay. So what different, when you guys are together, or what different ways would you find activities to do with your brother? What different things would you guys do?
So when he lived with us, he likes anything vestibular, which just means anything in movement. So, you know, keep him moving as much as possible, whether it's car rides, whether it's a walk, whether it's swimming, whether it's constant in motion. And if he's not kept busy, he will find other ways to keep himself busy. So it's just for everybody's best interest if you keep him moving. He definitely likes rollerblading. I can't keep up with him. I don't even try.
That's awesome.
He flies, and the staff at his group home were like, yeah, we took him out in the street. I was like, I'm sorry, what? You took him where? Like,
that's so awesome. What different things has your brother taught you?
Oh goodness, a bunch of stuff. I would say nonverbal communication. Since he doesn't talk, I have to kind of be 5 steps ahead of him. So, you know, where his eyes go, his body will follow. So if he's plotting something, if you pay attention to what he's looking at and where things are going, you can kind of anticipate what's next. And I think that's important. I'm an occupational therapist now, and so I've definitely taken that skill with me, for sure. Patience, just, I'm still learning when to bite my tongue, but like sometimes, sometimes you have to like rein it in, so.
That's awesome. That's great. What advice do you have for other maybe new siblings that have people with siblings with special needs and disabilities? Really just advice for other people that, you know, don't know how to go about it or anything like that.
That's loaded. It depends on the age. I mean, now things are a lot different. So there are things called SIB shops out there. So if you're talking about younger children, 8 to 13, I would definitely try to find a SIB shop in their area. And if they don't have one, create one. Because if I had like another sibling to talk to when I was younger, what a difference that would have made. So somebody who got it, somebody who lived it, somebody who understood it. I mean, I was probably 29 before I met my first sib, and it was like, don't do that to your siblings. Like, have them meet other siblings, have them talk, have them, you know.
Awesome.
And if they're teenagers, they're sib teens, there's support groups online.
No, that's great advice. A lot of our viewers will learn from this, so thank you for sharing that with us. Let's learn a little bit more about you. What do you do, and now that we're in quarantine, what is life like for you?
I'm actually coming to you from my office. I've been quite busy, which is awesome.
Right.
Excuse me, it's the end of the day, so my voice is going, but yeah, no, I'm an occupational therapist, but I'm also a yoga therapist, and so I use a treatment modality called yoga for the special child, and that's all I do kind of all day.
Nice.
So what you're looking at is kind of what I look at. I do have a select few that I will see in person right now, but it's very small numbers. And, you know, after I got my brother transitioned into his living situation, now I can't see him because of the pandemic. Florida's numbers are stupid, so if you're watching, wear your mask. Because nobody thinks it's real here. So,
Right.
please, just for the sake of my sibling, wear your mask.
Thank you.
So,
well, thank you for telling us about your story and really giving that advice that will help a lot of people and a lot of our viewers. And we just want to thank you, and we will be sending you a $25 Target gift card. Just as a thank you for being on our show and sharing your story. We really appreciate the advice that you gave us and really just sharing your story. It means a lot to us. A lot of people need to hear experiences to help their experience. So we really appreciate you sharing your story with us. But
yeah, if anybody wants to reach out or has any further questions on kind of any of that, I mean, I'm going to direct them to an attorney, but any of those legal processes and things. And
that's great. Well, thank you again for joining us. Thank you to our viewers for tuning in and watching our show. This was From We Can to We Can, and this was our At Home series.